高橋よいチャンネル。
Please tell us about the summit video conference meeting between Prime Minister Kishida and President Biden.
The summit meeting was finally held, but PM Kishida's wish to hold it in person was not granted. For a long time, Mr. Kishida had requested for the meeting to be held face-to-face. His request dates back to last October, when the general election was held. As he was available during November, he wanted to meet Biden directly. However, his request was denied and had to proceed with the online meeting. I think that there is a lack of commentary on TV talking about the differences between meeting in person and online. In a video conference, it is difficult to have a one-on-one conversation as many people are listening. After all, there's no way they could have just privately Skyped each other on their phone, right? Everyone is listening, using this huge system, making exclusive chats impossible. The most important thing about having a meeting face-to-face is that you can talk to each other privately. The former PM Abe was frequently criticized for always playing golf with Trump, but they are not just playing golf. They are having a conversation with no one around. Although technically Mr. Abe can speak English, he still brought a translator with him to avoid any kind of mistake or misunderstanding. Usually, the US brings a translator as well, but since Trump trusted Abe, only the Japanese translator was present. During games, they have to move around in a golf cart, right? Unlike Japan, golf carts in the US normally have 2 seats as opposed to 4. I couldn't help but ask Mr. Abe, where was the translator? And he told me, they were in the back, holding on to the golf bags and the pole, so they didn't take any notes. Now this is the key, everything is off record. Since the translator was busy translating, they wouldn't have any time to take notes. This makes the conversation exclusive and private, and what happens in private, stays private. There are plenty of opportunities to have telephone conferences, and if that suffices, then there should be no problem. The PM's office has many incoming phone calls, and everyone listens to it from the speaker. The people from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are standing by and listening. As I was saying, this is the main difference. The leaders can't have a private conversation. In any kind of human relationship, one-to-one conversation is crucial.
What do you think they talk about when it's just the two of them?
I wonder as well. I can't ask Mr. Abe, what do you guys talk about? It is between him and Trump, and only they know. So this is just me guessing, since Mr. Abe wouldn't tell me even if I asked. I'm just making assumptions here, but I think Mr. Abe would talk to Trump about the other foreign leaders. Telling him things like, Chancellor Merkel is like this, and Xi Jinping is like that. Or something along those lines. They are definitely talking about Xi Jinping, since Trump hadn't met him yet. People who have met Xi Jinping are foreign leaders like Mr. Abe, and he has probably met him multiple times to know what kind of person Xi Jinping is. For Trump, that kind of information is something that he really wants. In other words, private conversations such as talking about the country leaders are unnecessary for policy agenda, and vice versa. The two of them don't have to speak on topics such as unresolved issues as they could do that during the other official meetings. As both countries' Ministry of Foreign Affairs set it up, it was probably very practical and straight to the point. But if they were having a one-on-one conversation, they could talk about other stuff like their hobbies, and other people they know. Even in Japan, it's like that. We're all like that. What is discussed during private conversations and public meetings surrounded by other people are very different. When it's just the two of them, they are discussing matters they can't discuss during meetings. It's important to build bonds and trusting relationships like that. Of course, There is no use talking about something everybody knows when it's just the two of you.
There was a rumor about Putin taking baths quite often.
If he did, he could have gotten into an unfavorable position. Putin knows what he's doing. Mr. Abe wanted to catch Putin by the tail, but Putin didn't let that happen. He didn't want to get ridiculed. After all, it's about diplomacy. Mr. Abe tried his best, but it didn't work out well.
What about coming to Japan for the Quad Leaders Summit?
That was planned a long time ago. When they had the meeting in Washington, Mr. Suga's term wasn't over yet, and so he was invited to the next summit. The Quad Leaders Summit was decided then, with them proceeding under the guise that next time, it's your turn to come. So it was decided prior to the recent summit meeting. As they didn't have anything new to talk about, they discussed topics they had already covered as if it were something new. When they meet, even if it's the first time, the next host has already been decided.
Even with ordinary meetings, we all decide the next thing to do at the end.
There's no other way to go about it. If you don't do that, everybody wouldn't know what to do next. It's like, what are we talking about? So the second meeting was decided a long time ago. They have no choice but to talk about this as an accomplishment. To me, announcing something they've decided on before as an accomplishment makes zero sense.
Will PM Kishida ever get to meet President Biden?
I'm not sure. Since it is difficult to arrange a meeting in person, we will have to wait until they come to Japan, and they will come for Quad soon. But if someone else visits during this time, it would be awful. I wonder how they'll handle it. They have met each other once in Glasgow, but it was just a short greeting, so the next time they meet it will be their first proper meeting. It's like coming to the meeting and exchanging business cards. If they had a proper meeting this time, they could have discussed different topics next time. The reason why Biden suggested a telephone conference is quite simple, to talk about Ukraine and guarding the West Side. They wanted to talk about how to deal with the Ukraine crisis, and that they want to impose intense economic sanctions against Russia if they start invading Ukraine. That's why Biden accepted the meeting. If we think about this from Japan's perspective, Biden has voiced multiple concerns regarding climate change, and we could give suggestions such as increasing shale oil production. When economic sanctions are imposed on Russia, they will stop the pipeline in Europe as a countermeasure. Europe will be in trouble, but if the US can provide shale oil, the problem will be resolved. Also, Biden is currently having a hard time as he's about to lose the midterm elections. Let's go over what the increase in shale oil production can do. First, it could alleviate the fact that gasoline prices are rising in the US. Next, they could provide energy to Europe when Russia stops the pipeline. Finally, Russia's economy will go bad. In conclusion, you can kill 3 birds with 1 stone. If we say this, they'll jump on it because of the election. And if they lose the election, we already know who the lame duck is. Anyways, you can have this kind of conversation privately. This is something they talk about one-on-one.
Does Mr. Kishida have that kind of knowledge or strategy?
When it comes to talking just between the two of them, he'll probably think about what to talk about and what matters to discuss privately. Mr. Abe would have many topics to talk about from his experience. Even for Kishida it would work too. Someone could plant this kind of knowledge to him. But if there's no opportunity, none of this will happen. They could talk about elections and how it's tough for both of them, and from Mr. Biden's perspective, Mr. Kishida is someone who won the election. Hence, by being in an anxious state before the midterm election, his arguments and points will be very convincing and effective, and adding such phrases like this will make you win. Elections are relatable and easy for politicians to talk about. This usually happens in a private conversation between 2 people. If they could have had a private conversation, Japan would have been happy with the gasoline prices decreasing and not have to deal with anything extra. These are the merits to having a one-on-one meeting. You can discuss such topics within 1 to 2 minutes.
皆さんの質問をお待ちしております。よかったらチャンネル登録をお願いいたします。